Alahi of ERRA, Savel, the science officer of the ship Taygetan, the chief scientist and researcher, as well as historian, philosopher, physicist, and mathematician. Originally in Spanish, 2021. What are you working on now?
I study the magnetic influence structures of Earth's inhabitants, humans and non-humans, animals and plants, on the Earth's magnetosphere. Holding the hypothesis of what causes it directly despite the mediocre influence of the Van Allen bands. Thus creating a scientifically observable basis for what SWARUU maintains, that the consciousness of one organism adds to another nearby, to create a collective that creates a more evolved or more expanded being, in this case the Earth itself.
How interesting. And what devices do you use for that?
A set of spectrometers and interferometers put together feeding a computer. The spectrometers will measure the individual people and regions as electromagnetic frequency. One could say a personal and collective aura. And the interferometers will measure the total planetary part as gravity and mass fluctuations. The changes of the individuals are reflected in the total mass of the planet, its frequency, what some call Schumann frequencies. However, this frequency is too general and not very precise. This should be observed in microfrequencies and not in hertz, because it is like measuring the length of a mouse with a speedometer set in miles per hour.
Thank you. What have you observed in all this?
I have observed, using a multitude of state-of-the-art sensors, that the theories of a little girl turn out to be true. So, she is ahead of us even in the scientific field, this time in the area of biological cosmology.
How long have you been on this project?
Almost a year. It ends on July 10th. It depends on year-long readings to be able to draw a conclusion. The longer the time, the more accurate the results. So far, they are conclusively in favor of the little girl's theory.
And do you think that this year, with everything going on, is reliable in terms of the results?
I think that what happens on Earth, being that these are dramatic events, facilitates the reading of the sensors by simplifying the detection of the elements that support the experiment.
I understand. Sure, it's all potentialized. It's just that the worst of humanity must be coming out.
One can easily detect the average of the so-called collective aura, or collective local frequency, between two apparently similar places or different places such as Curacao, with high frequency, or Copenhagen, with low average frequency. The fact that there is so much contrast makes it easier to study the phenomenon.
I understand. Thank you. And what is Yashi's theory? Regarding your work here, I mean.
That, in the end, the whole, the universe, the source, is the direct result of the sum of the individual consciousnesses, being that, not being linear, each consciousness becomes the universe itself. So, an advanced being is not just one being, but the result of the average of multiple beings of less consciousness that compose it like cells in a body.
Forming between us, then, the planet and the planets forming the star, and so on?
That being the material observable part, yes.
And what would be the non-material?
The consciousness that generates the material part. Either as a direct intention or as a byproduct of its purely energetic activities.
And what subjects or things do you take as individuals? That is, do you take a starseed of each race, a direct pair from source as individual subjects, or non-real subjects, or by demographic zones?
I take individual people. Animals that form a region as well. Like a city. I take the city itself also, as a total. Then, I contrast the result of the sum values of the sum of the frequencies of its inhabitants, and I contrast it with the reading of the city as such. Although there are variations due to causes yet to be studied, they correspond almost perfectly, and, as the experiment is consistently repeatable, I conclude that the girl is right. Taking starseeds into account, it causes a change, in the sense that they are not equivalent in frequency to the population average. From observation, I can see with sensors, spectrometers, and interferometers that starseeds have the magnetic strength and influence on the total frequency of the place of many normal people. Sometimes equivalent to several 100,000 average people for a single starseed. Being that, in a scientifically measurable way, the enormous creative responsibility of each starseed can be proven. We don't need to change all the humans, just unite the starseeds.
In the consciousness of the Earth, who has more influence? The starseeds? Or, for example, the plant and animal kingdom?
Although I find my answer annoying and also unfair, what the sensors tell me is that it is the starseeds that have the most influence.
Why do you find it annoying and unfair?
Because I have a tendency to protect biology incapable of creating a visible elaborate culture. The animal and plant kingdom sustains high frequency, but also low, because of their mentality, mostly of survival. Still, the part of sustaining high frequency is directly affected by the activities of the human collective which, itself, is directed by the conscious creators or starseeds.
Wouldn't that be to be expected, seeing the development of the society and its state of manipulation, as compared to that which the starseeds bring as feeling or memories?
It is to be expected, that is correct. But I would hope that nature itself would seek its own homeostasis in spite of human activity. Being that it will create its own protective mechanisms against the exploitative activities coming from humans, but the evidence does not support this case.
What is the average number of starseeds you observe in each city, for example, or globally?
Each starseed, on average, is equivalent in its creative frequency to 1500 normal humans, of what you call the matrix. But I mean that those 1500 are being influenced by an average starseed. And those average starseeds are not particularly awakened. Many times, we can even confuse them with more matrix human people. One highly awakened starseed has influence over tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, sometimes more, influencing millions. Example of this last super level, Davidic.
And by comparison or percentage, I mean, if there are 1 million people, how many of them would be starseeds? And do you see them evenly distributed around the planet? Or do they tend to be more centered in some countries or energy zones?
I am still working on resolving this question. It turns out that the detectable starseeds blend into the normal population, making it impossible to detect them. Being that only the very awakened ones can be counted. But as to how many awakened ones per million, on Earth average, it would be something close to 5,000. Which are, unfortunately, few. However, this number is not definitive. They have a tendency to cluster in regions. Being that the region or place with the highest starseed population, over 90% among its inhabitants, would be Sedona, Arizona. Yet, on average, in the United States, quantities of awakened starseeds drop dramatically. When compared to places like Europe or Latin America, where the starseed population is higher. Especially in Central and South America. With another high concentration of starseeds in the east, from India, Nepal, Thailand, Laos and Burma. With a lower starseed per million reading in China, the place with the lowest non-human population according to interferometer readings. The United States does not have a particularly high starseed population as one would expect. Even so, they are condensed in Arizona and the New Mexico area. Some in California and scattered throughout the rest of the nation. China, yes, the result is to be expected.
Is there any place in Argentina where you would say there is a high concentration of awakened starseeds?
Buenos Aires area, strong quantity. Peak starseed demographic frequency. Buenos Aires area, only second in quantity of starseeds in all of South America after Rio de Janeiro area in Brazil. However, note that I mention places or cities, but many strong starseeds prefer to work outside large urban areas. they are also, on average, the ones that have the most influence.
And I guess the influence they have on the rest of the people is because of the personal frequency emitted from the fact that they are there. Because if they are not part of that collective unconscious, how do they manage to influence without totally separating their mental field?
The moment they are there, they are part of the collective. And even if a strong starseed separates itself from society and hides away from all communication in a village in the Amazon, it still influences the Earth's magnetic field and its average. But if that starseed connects with others, as you do here, their influence is exponentially greater, as is the result, which is to raise the average planetary frequency. So, a starseed, just by existing and pursuing her life and interests, is already helping to raise the frequency of the Earth and is influencing the field of consciousness of the collective, without having to dedicate herself to anything related to awakening other people. Their mission is simply to help by the mere fact of existing.
I see, thank you. Is a starseed related or connected to the human collective unconscious?
Yes. With all that I have already mentioned, I am referring more to the human collective unconscious than anything measurable as a frequency, but the two are intrinsically related.
But can't at the same time a starseed be dragged down by the human collective? For example, by the mental pressure exerted upon it, and create an opposite effect, that is, lower the planetary vibration?
That is also correct and happens all the time. For a starseed, to increase in strength will be exponentially more demanding in every way, energetically, mentally. Being that most will only strive to not fall out of total frequency, as the collective average has a tendency to drag them down. This can simply be explained by the principle of dominant frequency. It is very difficult and demanding to be a starseed, the more so knowing that if you fall in frequency in a logical spiral of negativity, your circle of influence will as well.